So now I can just drop my line in. I can trace it off if I want to. Just darken this up a bit. And just take and shift and trace this. So I line it up over here. You can see my path of action is off slightly. So I'm just going to make sure that the length of the line maintains its overall length here. And the ball stays out here. Okay, so I'm not going to shorten it up. Just because I drew the path of action in a slightly shorter version of it does not mean that I modify where my pendulum is going to go. Because in this instance here, we're dealing with just a straight side view. Okay, there's no dimension, no depth to it, so I don't want to create the illusion that it's coming towards us. If I wanted to, I could do that where, let's say I had the pendulum swinging up high over here, and the pendulum on this side here, I could make the ball very, very large over here. So it looks like the pendulum is actually swinging three-dimensionally towards us and away. Then I'd have to do the ball in the middle as half the size of the two of them, right? But since I'm just doing a straight-on profile, balls are all the same, so therefore the length of my line has to maintain its distance as well. So it's just going to go as a straight halfway. Okay? So now we just continue through this exact same process of just dropping in each of our in-betweens. We'll start with 14 first, since 15 is already down. So 14, and I'm just going to rip through these really quick because they're all just halfways. So you don't have to necessarily keep up with me if you don't want to, or if you can't. But it's just to describe what's going on. So half the distance. And I need 13. But I'm actually going to put number 8 down. The reason I put number 8 down first is because all my in-betweens from 13 are going into 8. So my next in-between is going to be number 12. So once I've done number 12, I then have to take number 13 and leave number 12 down and number 8. So I might as well leave number 8 on the bottom, because then that way I don't have to keep pulling it off and putting it down. If I put 13 down first and 8 on top of it, I'd have to keep switching the papers around all the time. So because I'm moving into it, I'm just going to leave it down on the bottom. So my next in-between is 12. So halfway between this point here, path of action, half the distance. So I leave number 8 down, 13 comes off, 12 goes back on top. And I do number 11 next. Exact same process. Half the distance in between. As I get closer in here, what I want to do is I want to make sure that my ball is not going to wobble. So I'm going to find those two bottom points there so I can line up my drawing properly and make sure that it's going to the halfway position. So halfway between those 2 points will be roughly about there. Okay, so I have to align my paper correctly. This is what you're doing on your in-betweening assignments. You're finding the halfway point between your lines, any shapes. You've got to be as accurate as you possibly can, otherwise it will start to wobble on you. And as you've already seen with your previous 2 assignments, that even just a little bit of a jittering line, I'm sure some of you found that when you did your descending energy, as you got to those final drawings at the very end, easing the ball into the final position, I'm sure a lot of you found, holy cow, like the difference between these lines is like the thickness of my pencil, or it's like they're almost right on top of each other, and you're saying to yourself, well, why am I drawing this? It's not moving anywhere. Well, yes, it is actually moving somewhere, and you do have to show that distance, and you have to be as accurate as you possibly can, because any difference in the line will cause the ball to go wah, 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 all over the place, and that's the one thing you don't want to have happen. You don't want your stuff distorting and moving around. Can you imagine a character on screen with their face And if you didn't keep control of the lines, their face actually wobbles like this, where it's all the nose is moving all over the place and the eyes are sliding on the. That would look creepy. So you want to try and maintain your volumes and structural proportion as much as you can. Down to the final couple of in-betweens here now. I'm just really roughly blocking these in. And now my final in-between is number 9. Find my halfway point on my way down. And the halfway point between the two balls, so I look for the high point on the two, find my halfway, and I can shift, find the connection point, and then trace it off. And there I have my final in-between on this side. We'll just put these all in order now. So I'll now have my one side. Do my stack flip to make sure that it's working properly. Overlap, and then ease into the back down. That gives me my reversal on the action. Make sure that's working properly. And so now, if I fast forward in time, I've actually got my Easy Bake Oven version, where I have already flipped over all the drawings and traced them all off. So basically what I did was I took number 15. Actually, I went through them in order. Since 1 and 15 are the same, just opposites. I then went through with number 2. Took my number 2 drawing, put it on the pegs. Grabbed my blank sheet of paper and placed it over top. Did the rub down transfer. You get the lead onto the opposite side. Then flip it back over and traced. Drew the line on there to get the exact position of it. Complete my line up here so it connects. So I've got my opposite version and simply went through on each of the drawings. So number 2 became 16, number 3 becomes 17, number 4 becomes 18, etc., 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 all the way through until I link back up again into number 15, which is the final drawing, or the hook back into the final drawing.